Beyond the Wrench with Jay Goninen from WrenchWay.
Welcome to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. Happy to have you join us yet again. In this week's episode, I was really excited to have Nick Adams, who's the managing director for Dieselmatic Digital, join the podcast and talk about a variety of different types of marketing things that I think are really impactful and really helpful for anybody to listen to. But specifically, his niche are diesel shops, and really has a lot of background, a lot of knowledge about everything that goes into it, how to make sure that you're spending your money in the right spots and maybe not spending money blindly. But overall, just a really good podcast where we talk on a lot of different types of marketing and different ways that you can get out in front of the people you want to. And coincidentally, this week's podcast episode is brought to us by Fullbay. And there was just announced that Fullbay had recently acquired Dieselmatic Digital in a really good partnership, and some really brilliant people kind of combining their forces for the better. But if you haven't heard of Fullbay, it's an industry-leading software solution for heavy-duty repair shops. This cloud-based app is loaded with features that will let you leave the shop for a long overdue vacation. Great partners of ours here at WrenchWay, and just run a heck of a business and great people. So as for this week's episode, again, you're really going to enjoy it. Nick is a great guy and has a lot of great insights, and I hope you enjoy it. Have a great week. On this week's episode, I am excited to be joined by Nick Adams. Nick is the managing director at Dieselmatic Digital. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Jay. How are you, man?
I'm good. I've gotten to know Nick a little bit here, and he's got a really cool company, and I think a lot of knowledge that will be good for everybody listening to the podcast. So why don't we start there and tell us a little bit about the company?
Yeah, Jay. Well, I mean, before I go into that, I want to say too that I've got a lot of respect for your company and what you've done. One of the things that I always look for at other companies is the people that they have and how they kind of interact out in the world. And you guys are fantastic. It seems like every time I see a WrenchWay staff member, they're happy and energetic and excited. And that's like, you know, it's a tough thing to do within a company as you grow to keep that kind of alive. So
that's like the highest compliment. I love that, that our people come off as happy. Hopefully they are happy, but yeah, we've got some rock stars, and it just, you know, trying to keep everybody happy is sometimes challenging, but they do a phenomenal job at kind of maintaining their own happiness. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, man. But yeah, going into Dieselmatic, to give the brief overview of who we are and what we do. So we are a digital marketing and web design agency specifically for commercial truck repair shops. So we work with truck repair shops all throughout Canada and the US. We design and develop their websites, work with them on an ongoing basis to create marketing plans, continually optimize those plans, and grow their shop together.
Yeah, and you do some fantastic work. I was able to check some of it out.
Thank you.
Just always looks really polished and really, really nice. So let's talk about your story. What led you into the diesel business and really focusing on diesel repair shops?
Oh man, it's a good one. I know probably, you know, a certain, probably a lower percentage of listeners are specifically within the diesel repair space, maybe more in the automotive space. But I think the thing that really pushed me was seeing the first shop that we worked with. So the first diesel repair shop that we worked with started out around $500,000 a year in revenue. The owner lived in I think like an 800 square foot house, like super small. And after about a year and a half, 2 years, we had gotten the shop's revenue to just under 2 million.
All right.
And he moved into a 3,500 square foot, 3-acre property, and just seeing that, that life change for him, like something that we did had a real, not just a business effect, but it cascaded into his life and made his life better. He had more time with his kids and his family. He was going on fishing trips all the time. It was just really a really clear industry in need of the kind of support that I personally was very good at. And I've been fortunate enough over these last 2 years that Dieselmatic has been operating to have grown a team that is helping fulfill that vision and helping shops.
I mean, when you talk about impact, and that's something I've talked a lot about in the podcast itself, but it is so cool to hear stories like that of people that, are working so hard to do their thing and might be struggling in some capacity, and then offering a service such as you do to kind of help turn their life around. I mean, it is insane, the impact that's behind that.
Totally. I mean, I'm sure you guys have. Have you had many stories like that? In your past?
It's crazy because in our business, it's more like trying to get them help so that they can go on a vacation, or they can go, and not have to worry about everything. And the human resources behind being able to give you the flexibility to do something like that is really what it's all about. And I think one of the major issues we see with independents in general is that they're so consumed in the day-to-day operations. They're so consumed in trying to pay all the bills so that they can open the doors the next day, that they don't have the ability to take a step back and work on their business. And something like a web presence, or something like getting your staffing or your tooling in order in a shop, is so vital to giving them freedom. And I don't think a lot of shops that are in that predicament, that are living in that 800 square foot house, are thinking that way, right? Like they're so busy trying to just keep up that it paralyzes them from being able to do the really, really impactful stuff. And that's really kind of taking that step back and truly being a CEO, rather than being stuck under a truck somewhere and trying to get the next piece out so that, your customer's not yelling at you. There's a lot of difference between the two.
Yeah. Getting, I guess, not necessarily behind the wrench, but away from the wrench.
Yeah. And it's a hard concept for a lot of people to get their head around. But that model of working on your business, not in your business, is so important to gaining flexibility for you in the future.
Having the kind of core principles of the nice thing about doing a podcast like this is that you and I are both business owners. Most of the people listening to this right now are business owners, and it's really easy as time goes by to forget the reasons why you started a business, right? And like you said, when you're drowning in paperwork and trying to hire techs to keep up with work, or trying to market your shop so that you have work for those techs, and balancing all these things, it's easy to forget that you wanted to be in charge of your time, right? That's a big one. That's a big reason why people start a business. And as time goes on with a successful business, your business can start being in charge of your time instead of you. And taking those risks, right? Those things where you're saying, investing in people, it's a scary thing to do, and it's a difficult thing to do. But taking those steps of trying to trust people and build them and give them a good job, that they get to do work that they love to do, that's challenging, that they can grow. They have, opportunities to, fun environment. The shop plays good music.
Yeah.
Those are
Go
all
ahead.
things.
They are. And that's one of the big cautionary tales I tell a technician when they come to me and say, hey, you know what, I'm looking at opening my own shop. Like, I'm looking at doing my own thing, is more of not trying to scare them away, but letting them know the realities of when you get into a shop. It's not like you're just working on equipment or trucks or cars anymore. You're actually, you're taking a step back and letting others kind of complete that work. Your job is to build the business, and it's a completely different mindset. I think there's things that you can take from that and make it, if you're effective on that side. I guess my biggest piece of advice is don't assume that translates easily to the ownership role.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember the principle, but it's a business principle where people essentially get promoted one position past their capacity, right? And they fail when they get there because they can't fulfill the role anymore, and it feels like a demotion to go back down.
They're stuck.
They're stuck right there in a role that they can't really succeed in. And I mean, the tough thing is that I guess a caveat here is that we'll get into some marketing stuff.
We sure will. And,
yeah. Try to provide some value for people listening about, how to grow, but the philosophical stuff is fun too. But I lost my train.
Well, so like just talking, one thing I would ask you is, and this is more of like a business owner's question, is when did you start to understand that you needed to add people to your team?
Yeah. So I guess I'll finish off where I was gonna go. It's just that entrepreneurship is a risk that, you really can't know until you do take that risk. I think just mitigating the risk and not, starting out with a, 10,000 square foot facility, that's probably the way to go. But my strategy with developing a business was that I wanted to learn and understand every aspect of the business and how it functioned, and be able to perform those tasks to some degree of competency myself. Right. And then as I grew, hire people where I was the worst, right? Where I was the weakest at those roles. And, for the hard thing, I think, with growing a shop is that most of the time a shop owner will, obviously be strongest at the technical side of the work, and not necessarily at the business development or business management, paperwork, invoicing, accounting, all of that. And I think it's what would you recommend as that guy who comes to you, if he's like, Jay, who is my first hire? Who should I hire? Who would you recommend?
So in a shop, it's so hard because the production and what you do in the shop is what you get paid on, right? And so I think the natural instinct is to go that direction. I know for me, looking back at our company and how we started off, and really why I took on a business partner in the first place, was we needed better operations in general, right? Like, we needed more structure in terms of process, and a lot of the things that I was still weak at, I still suck at process. But I know it's really important, right? And I think that to me is so important, to be able to understand your weaknesses. And if you're being honest with yourself, a lot of times your weaknesses are the things that you just frankly don't like to do. Like, it's a struggle for you to even do them.
Well, and that's a big part of it too, that I think for me, realizing that the things that I don't like to do that were, obviously weaknesses, other people do like to do them, and they're really good at them. right? Like talking about the operations and systems management side of things. We have a fantastic operations manager who, takes all of the knowledge that that I have out and puts it into a process that other people can, fulfill those services on. It's fantastic.
It is. And so when you're looking at that from a shop's perspective, it's such a great and unique question to ask. And I think it all depends on the shop, right? And it all depends on the aptitude of the owner or the manager of like what, if that first hire needs to produce cash right away, it's probably really hard to hire an operations person right away. But maybe you can contract some of that stuff out. There's an accounting firm close by to your shop that can handle that for you. QuickBooks Online has made that much, much easier. But being able to maybe outsource some of the stuff to start off with, rather than trying to hire on full-time employees while you hire somebody that is producing, I think could be a kind of a move the needle type of move in general.
Totally. I mean, those, the first year, the wrong $50 a month commitment can sink you, right? Those are big things that you have to pay attention to until, you eventually get to a point where you're having, your payrolls, 5 to 6 figure payroll, and it's, there are much different considerations to have. But I'm really curious about the shops that I know I'm not supposed to be in.
You're good. You're good. I love this. It's such a natural conversation. It's great.
Yeah. I'm really curious about the shops that are within the commercial repair space that you guys have worked with, and I guess we will X the technician shortage and finding staff as the number one problem, because I think we can all agree that that's the number one problem. What would you say are the other main problems that those people face within their shop?
I think a lot of it's what we've talked about, right? Like, I think there's just general operational types of things. And the crazy part about diesel shops in general is the variance in how large they are, right? Like there's small mom and pops, there's gigantic companies, you have the fleet maintenance companies that are kind of, on the road all the time. So I think there's so many different variations within this sector that make it unique that, I think each one battles their own thing. Sometimes it is operational, but there's other times where it could be, a marketing or a sales type of issue where you're not getting enough work in the door. And so I hate to be vague, but I also think it's so dependent on the type of shop that we're dealing with, right? Like if it is a mom and pop, their challenges might be different than what a big company has.
Yeah, that's very true. I think it was something like 50% of truck repair shops in the US are one location businesses, and then it has a natural progression of locations up from there. Two is, I think, like 25% or something like that, and kind of goes down from there. But yeah, I mean, we definitely run into into those same problems. Our role when we start talking with a shop is first to find out, like, are we the right fit? Does it make sense to work together? Are your problems that we solve? Because if not, then how can we have a beneficial relationship? The example of a small shop, so I would say one location shop in a mid-size American town is probably going to not have a clearly defined marketing strategy, right? That's probably the biggest thing. They probably have maybe dipped their toes into, some Google ad campaigns a little bit. They might have a website, maybe not, maybe just a Facebook page. And those are the problems that that those shops have, the larger multi-location shops, or just a single shop that's 10,000 plus square feet that is doing $5 million a year plus in revenue. The problems that they have is that it's a little bit of an overlap of a problem, but the issue is that we are in a very unique industry, and it's really hard to find a local marketing agency that understands your needs, right? That someone that you don't have to spend hours and hours with explaining that, like an EGR and a DPF or exhaust gas recirculation.
Yeah.
and that, there are very strict rules around them, and they vary state by state or country by country. And those problems, both of those problems are really fun ones that we get to solve, right? Where, some of those, a big shop, for example, that's doing $5 million a year plus is probably, they probably have a Google Ads campaign that isn't running as effectively as it could, right? They're whoever's managing it, there are, this is part of it where I like to go into these details and try to teach people a little bit. It's hard because a shop owner, they're experts at what they do, right? And the purpose of working with someone like with a company like Dieselmatic is that they don't have to learn all about this, but to keep going with that is, just little things like, if you are trying to capitalize on road service, right, and do more road calls, if you're even maybe you are working with a decently competent marketing agency, they're probably going to, have your area blocked off, right? Doing geo-targeting for your specific geographical area and advertising only in that area. What they won't know to do is target call centers all across the US and Canada, where the truck that breaks down is not Googling themselves and trying to find the closest shop. They're calling dispatch, and then dispatch is going to get them the info. And so, because we are so niched within this industry, we'll make sure that we target every major call center, every major dispatch center, and geo-target around those areas for your location, right? So making sure that, if somebody in Delaware is searching when a truck is broken down in Wyoming, right? If you're only geo-targeted to Wyoming, your shop is not going to show up. But if you are fenced around those dispatch centers, you will. So there's lots of little things like that we do that add up to make a big difference.
Well, and I think that's exactly what I'm talking about when you had posed the question of, who do you hire first? Mm-hmm. In a lot of scenarios, like that's where having a marketing expert is so hugely important, is because, that's something I tried to tackle on my own when I first started my business, and it was awful at it, right? Like it was, you end up spending who knows how much money on Facebook ads and YouTube.
What would you say if you're comfortable saying this, what would you say is a ballpark of like how much money you think you've wasted on marketing, like before you hired somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like we did so it's almost twofold, right? Because I think I learned really early on that like I wasn't the guy to do it. And so we had hired outside marketing companies to do it. And even with that, I think, doing keyword research, we didn't have the tools in place in terms of actually writing content to those keywords until we had the research, and then we're trying to write content, but we really needed more in terms of content production to utilize those keywords. But we paid thousands of dollars for keyword research, right? And looking back, we probably weren't quite at that stage yet, right? Like we probably should have maybe taken a little bit more time to be able to understand how we were going to create content prior to doing that. Now, early days when I was on Facebook, it was interesting because we had a little bit of a scenario where you needed technicians and shops, and we had to market to them differently, right? Like, because shops would want to see something different, or would Google search something different than what a technician
Yeah,
would.
yeah,
And so it
yeah.
was really, you're trying to figure out
That
what
is
comes first, the
interesting. I
chicken or
never
the.
thought about that. How you have a B2B and a B2C customer base.
Yes.
I mean, we deal with that, but in a sense of like our customers are businesses and our customers are businesses and customers and
Yes.
individual people. But that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the whole WrenchWay concept really took hold, was because what we learned on the recruiting side was, okay, in order to adequately do this for a customer, you truly have to become like a full out marketing machine to get out in front of these people. And what we found was that if we can work with the clients and have them get their word out, it just worked better, because it wasn't, when we had Find a Wrench, it wasn't Find a Wrench saying, we at Find a Wrench have a client that's looking for technicians, and that didn't work as well as,
Yeah.
X equipment company is hiring, like, so, and with Indeed's rules and everything like that, and ZipRecruiter and all the job boards, it was a challenge. So we used kind of all the principles that we had learned on that side and applied them on the technology side to be able to kind of help guide that process. But it is, I mean, looking back, and that's where I think I put myself in the seat of a shop, where that's transitioned maybe a little bit to where it was always so customer focused on the shop side, to being, you do need to market yourself to technicians, because you've got work coming in the door. Or if you don't have enough work coming in the door, that there's really great ways that you can get more work in the door. But at the end of the day, the technicians are the ones that are producing the output, and you need to be able to market to those people. And that was really kind of the evolution of WrenchWay, was trying to figure out how shops could do that in a more, I don't know, more realistic sense. And that would be
Yeah.
one thing, like going back, Nick, that I would ask, when you're sitting down with a client up front, is it challenging for shops to understand what makes them unique, like different?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it is. I think one of the things that that shops do to differentiate that is successful, and it's hard. I mean, I have this opinion because of the service that we provide, but the shops that I see succeed are the ones who invest into the image of their business, right? So if I can kind of tie this conversation back to the principles of why you start a business, why do you start a shop, right? Like you probably like what you do, right? Like you like fixing stuff, and you're probably pretty good at it. But having that long-term vision of what am I going to do in 20 years? Am I building this business towards something that I can sell for a retirement amount? Or, do I have to take the path of buying the building and having that be the asset, right? If you can take the route of building the business into something that can sell and operate without you, continue to grow without you, that is a huge asset. That I mean, if you get to that point where you are essentially an absentee owner, you're going to get a very good price for your business, because somebody can come in and maybe identify some areas where they can improve it, whatever, that's up to them. But that's the goal that you're working towards. And what I see, the shops that I see, specifically the types of shop owners that we kind of flag and say, like, this is somebody that we want to work with, are the people who understand that they're building towards a business that can run autonomously, and that, you know, the brand value that's associated with it, and the marketing process and the sales process that brings the work into the shop is a piece that's missing in a lot of service businesses in general, not just within the commercial repair space. I mean, within the automotive repair space, within the, you know, home service space, wherever it is.
Plumbing.
Plumbing. Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting, and really, I think so important is to understand what your vision is and what you're trying to push toward. And I think in the diesel business, there are a lot of people that desire to have a family, a true family type of business too, that maybe they want to pass it down to the next generation, or they want to do something, but understanding that up front is probably, paramount to being able to successfully do whatever.
Well, and, just that, like, brand awareness within your area is really important. And I mean, we have the same struggle, right? We are, we're still a small business, and, we're growing pretty quickly, but I don't know, if I had to guess, I'd say maybe 5%, maybe 10% of the commercial repair industry knows who Dieselmatic is. And that's a big hurdle that we need to get over, right? Like, we have a fantastic service that solves painful problems that shop owners, complain about every day, but just getting there. And we have some solutions for that coming up in the future, but it's just nice when you have, when you get to do something like you guys do and like we do, that, the sales process is really easy because, for us specifically, we operate on a month-to-month contract. There's no long-term contracts. I do not believe marketing companies should charge long-term contracts, but we have to make you more money than you pay us, right? To put it really simply.
Yeah.
And we're really transparent with that. We make sure we do monthly reporting that shows, you spent this much and you made this much. It's either red or it's green. If it's green, it's good. If it's red, it's bad. And
we got work to do.
Either we need to do better or you're going to fire us.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because, similar to what we talked about earlier, you're going into each situation probably a little bit unique, right? Like, every shop is, you could probably 80-20 it and see, that 20% of the problems, or 20% of the shops have the same problems or whatever. I said that wrong, but being able to say, okay, most shops are going to have these common issues and be able to attack those. But when you dive into it, are there common themes or common things you see when you first start off with the shop, in terms of maybe what they're doing wrong, or maybe even their approach to it?
Really easy. Really simple things that anyone can fix right now. Your website, it probably isn't very good.
Yeah.
So you can do little things, you probably have all of the types of services that you provide listed on your homepage as a single bullet point or something like that. Break out each of those into an individual page. Get your web developer to create a specific page for brake service, for suspension, for emission services, transmissions. Have a unique landing page for each of those, and that allows for people who are not searching just general truck repair near me, but specifically commercial truck brake shop near me. That will improve your chances of being found. And then additionally, those pages can be used within ad campaigns. So within Google Ads, another thing that's really important, it's called the quality score. don't fall asleep if you're driving and I'm boring you, but it's important
No.
because it's your money, right? It's a big, so if your quality score is bad, you're going to pay more every time someone clicks on your ad. And it's probably not going to be shown as high. But if your quality score is high, it's going to be shown higher in the result, and you're going to pay less for it because Google knows that it is relevant to what the user, the customer, is searching for. So if if somebody is searching for a commercial truck brake shop, and your landing page is specifically within that campaign, specifically for commercial truck brakes, you're going to have a high relevancy and therefore be able to, hopefully get a new customer for a lower dollar value.
How does content play into that? Because obviously keywords are really important to be able to capture Google's attention and get you to the front of their page, but you've got to put some kind of meat behind it too, don't you? It can't just be the word. They're looking at whether it's actually relevant information. I mean, it's Google in itself is just so mind-boggling in terms of like how smart those people are and how they get around some of this stuff. But any advice on the kind of the content piece of it?
Yeah, I would say something that's super practical. Everybody has a phone. Oh boy, I'm showing off all the notifications I've got while we're on this call. Everyone has a phone, and your phone, you can do text, voice to text. Write your pages that way. Just talk about, most guys will have a hard time sitting down at a white page and typing out something about brake service. Just get your notes app out and record voice to text about, the most common problems that you see come into the shop regarding that service. So talk about, the most common points of brake failure that you see, and what you guys do to fix that. You like if you, the shop owner listening, if I asked you that question, you probably have a running list in your head right now of like, oh, this, and you could list it off. That's the stuff that you can put on there. Just write it out and then send it to your web developer. And I mean, we do that internally. Our job is to take as much work as possible off of the shop owner's plate. So I mean, the way that we do it internally is by, we have content writers who produce the content, and but we do it around those same principles and ideas. So if you're looking to DIY it, that's a really simple way to get, relevant content in a voice that your customer is going to know because you said it.
That's a great tip, by the way. And so say you're building out content, it's still very, from a marketing perspective, it does, I feel like, go back to principles that have been around forever, which is, you're trying to sell to a customer, you're trying to get them to see you in a different light than maybe they see another shop down the road. How do you go about, if you're a shop trying to, you talked about the visual element of it and making sure that that's in check, but how do you go so that you're not just talking about, hey, we do DPF servicing, but taking it maybe the extra step of, what is truly like really impactful to a customer, and the reason why you should come to our shop over any other shop is X. I know when we talk about it on the staffing side, it's really challenging for a shop to understand why they're unique or why they're different. And when you start talking, you start to pick out things and you're like, okay, that's not every shop has that. One example I always use is when we're going through this process with a shop, or if a shop calls me and they're having trouble with this, is to say, okay, like if you think offering free uniforms is a really big benefit that you're offering, that's not great. Like everybody does that. Like you need to take that like a step further and figure out why, why are you different than everybody else?
The WrenchWay app helps technicians in the automotive, diesel, and heavy equipment industries by making it easier to search for jobs, highlighting the best shops to work at, and gathering feedback and ideas on how the industry can be improved. The app is completely free to use and can be downloaded in the App Store or on Google Play. We've included a link in the show notes with more information.
I mean, having the foundational principles of how and why you operate your business are super, super important.
Yeah.
Investing in people is, I mean, you can listen to almost any successful entrepreneur till you're blue in the face and they will tell you to invest in people. Finding good people it's really hard to do. But I know for myself, it's been by far the most rewarding part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Agreed.
And, making sure that, you have things in place like a benefits plan and healthcare, 401k matching, whatever it is that makes you competitive. And, the real part of it that I don't think gets talked about a lot is that you're a business owner and that money is coming out of profit, right? When you first do it, you're taking, this means that now this year I make less money, right? And that's the hard thing. I mean, there's a company based out of Seattle who cut their profit by like, I think it was $1 million or $2 million, in order to give everyone of the company, I think they did a minimum base salary of $70,000 a year.
Yep.
Right. And it was a big hit for the first year. Their books didn't look great. But then in the coming years, they saw things like much higher retention. Employees weren't leaving as much. People started buying homes instead of just renting, and which meant that they could stay in the area and stay at work. People started having children, and that, they had where people were just single children families. They would have 2 or 3 little things like that then led to people feeling more satisfied with their work and their life, and providing better results and better qualities, being able to deal with a disgruntled customer. If maybe one of your mechanics messed up and you've got an angry customer, that guy is going to be a lot more likely to keep a cool head and be able to troubleshoot the problem if he doesn't also have the stresses of, am I going to make my mortgage or rent, or I've got a doctor's appointment coming up and I don't know how to pay for it. All those things make a big difference. And it's something that you just have to take the leap and do it.
Well, and that guy did it better than anybody else because he turned that into their marketing story, right? Like that was
Oh, absolutely. I love that you know it too.
Yes, he's everywhere. I mean, you'll see it shared on LinkedIn, you'll see it shared on Twitter, on Facebook. It's everywhere. And it's not just him sharing it, right? Like he's got.
I wonder if they took that money out of their marketing budget. They're just like, we'll give it to our employees, and then everyone will talk about it.
Well, it's funny. There's a local company to us in Wisconsin here, and they're called Vortex Optics, and so they're like scopes for guns. And I was in a class with them, and it was something like the next generation, whatever. And we had a similar accountant to the company that I was working at. And one of the really cool parts about their story, I sat down, I had no idea who they are. I'm not a hunter, which I didn't know anything about it. But, he talked about how they manufactured scopes. And so I started learning more about it. But what he told me in the story was that they were fighting their customers with warranty repairs. So like there would be instances where a bear would come like eat somebody's scope and try to get warranty on it. And then the customers would, they're arguing back and forth with their customers. So what they did was they took their marketing budget and basically put it into warranty everything. And so every time somebody does something like this, and he's sharing this with me, I'm like, this is brilliant. But they, like, if that bear ate the scope, or if something got, they dropped it off of the top of a building or something like that, they actually had their customers start sending pictures in of how they destroyed the scopes.
They would warranty it.
Yeah, they warrantied anything. And so
wow,
they grew so fast, and they still, I mean, they built just a gigantic, beautiful building just down the road from us here. And it's such a cool story in that he viewed it as, rather than fighting against our customers, we're just going to warranty everything and tell the stories about it. And that's going to be our marketing. And I'm like, that is brilliant.
It's a tough, like truly putting your customers first is it's a really hard thing to do. And to follow, I mean, some companies have followed it through to the detriment of others, right? I mean, Amazon is probably the best example of a company that, they, like, to a fault, put customers first. They want people to have the cheapest option possible across the board, which is great for you and I and everyone buying on Amazon. It's not so great for the people who, have to fulfill those services in a warehouse. But really interesting. Okay, so how did you and I think you could apply that to a repair shop?
I was just going to ask you the same exact thing. And I think it is so fascinating of a question to answer, because if one does it really successfully, then I feel like a lot of others would follow suit. But, that to me is such a distinct advantage for them, of something they turned from a negative into a positive in really just taking care of their customers, that they've got, if you've ever read the book Raving Fans, they have raving fans. They have people that, they're buying their memorabilia. They're buying, that they've grown to a level that's just insane, but it's because they did cool stuff like that. Like they tweak things.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it's at in repair, in the repair business, but there's got to be something in there that you can tweak or really make your marketing campaign.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you think about all of the fights that you deal with in a shop. I grew up working in a marine repair shop with my grandfather, and the fights that go on about, like, yes, we repaired this and it broke later and they're angry about it. Every shop owner knows that fight. I don't know that you could necessarily apply that same principle and warranty everything. You'd probably go broke. But yeah, but I think there are things where you can put your customer first. So for example, like PM service reminders, right? So we do things like we have a bunch of API integrations developed with different shop software, but we will essentially provide an API integration that pulls the data from your shop software, and we will build marketing campaigns around that. So, let's say somebody brings in their Freightliner for service, and they are due again in 20,000 miles, which is, roughly equivalent to however many months. They will automatically go into a campaign that then drips it to them and sends them a reminder at that time, right? Nothing that's like, we don't like to be annoying with marketing. I hate annoying marketing.
Me too.
It's good to be helpful, right? Just something like, oh, like if I'm an owner operator or run a fleet, it's just right there. Okay, cool. Yeah, we should probably bring that in before it breaks.
Yeah, and I think right there you hit on a point that is really important. And I think this is in general marketing through a website or whatever, but bringing value without asking for money in those scenarios, being able to, I look at opportunities for content, and there's a lot of people that do a really good job of it out on YouTube and, through their web pages, and being able to show how to check your oil, or, how to, like really simple things that you might take for granted, but could offer a really great resource to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Content wise, I mean, like one of the reasons why, I wanted Dieselmatic to be specifically within the diesel HD commercial truck repair space and not within the larger automotive space is because there is a large number of marketing agencies specifically that solve that problem already. So it's not that fun to solve a problem that there's already a solution for. And two, content is a big part of helping a shop's website show up when people search for things. There is a gap within our market of a lot of content that needs to be filled, specifically towards the intricacies of rebuilding a Cummins ISX. Right, that's a very specific project that there is not a lot of info about. And if you actually search Cummins ISX common problems, you'll see a couple of Dieselmatic clients show up as the number one spot, because those were articles that that there was a gap for and a need for. And you add value like that, and sure, it's going to show, if you're sitting there saying like that's an informational keyword that isn't going to drive a transaction. Informational keywords like that will help support transactional keywords like truck repair shop near me. It will improve the credibility and overall authority of your website, which means eventually, you'll show up higher for those types of services and searches. And I guess that's probably a few of the ways that you can actually put customers first. But yeah, I think wrapping I know we're probably getting close to the end where we need to have but wrapping that back in to what we were talking about earlier with investing in people. One of the things that I saw within the market was the expense that shops had to take in order to have a marketing person. It is high. It's really high, and it's a big risk, because the person that you hire may or may not have the particular skill set that's necessary to grow a shop. And if they do have it, they then still might have an issue with learning about the commercial truck repair space. And those are two big risks that shop owners have to take. So, I mean, that's why, we can, if anyone's interested, you can schedule on our website, but, we're a fraction of the cost of hiring a full-time employee with, I think, better results.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something that is nerve-wracking for a shop, which is, say you hire a marketing person on, or even a marketing firm, maybe not knowing what questions to even ask, right? Like, how do you know it's working? How do you know, that the money that I'm spending is going to something that's productive? And if you hire somebody directly onto your staff, you run into that issue because they're part of your staff. You're trying to hold them accountable. But if you don't even know what to hold them accountable to, it probably just goes back to like, okay, we're looking at our Google search results, or, it's easy to go high level, but when you have to dive deeper into it, that's when you can uncover some stuff that maybe exposes a lack of knowledge, or, something like that. So any advice in terms of what questions to ask, or, like if you're talking to a marketing firm or potentially hiring a marketing person onto your staff?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think some of the things that we've talked about already, I'll recap here. So if you want to cut this part and save it, your website and the amount of pages and the content that's on those pages, how are they going to build those? How do you think our website, our sitemap should look? Right? Like, that's something I'm always very careful about doing unpaid work, right? But you shouldn't have a problem with getting a marketing agency or hiring a marketing person and asking them to just pencil and paper write out a site map for you of what your site should look like. That will give you a rough idea of, if they maybe are starting to grasp the industry or not. The next thing to ask about would be, what should my target cost per acquisition be for new customers? So how much should I be paying to get a new customer? And that's something that you have to know a bit about your business as well. Is your business able to profitably gain a new customer at, if you pay $40 to get that customer, are you making a profit? If you pay $300 to get that customer, are you making a profit? If you're not sure, the kind of industry average that I like to go off of is an average invoice of somewhere between $1,300 and $1,500 with a 30 to 35% profit margin is somewhere around $300 to $500 profit per customer. So that's kind of I would say the second question to ask. And then the third question to ask is, what is the point of marketing?
That's great.
And those broad questions, you can ask these small technical questions to get those ideas of, do they understand our industry? Do they understand how to, help us grow our shop? The broad question is good because I'll tell you the ideal answer that you want to hear from that. I
was going to ask that.
Yeah. You want to hear something along the lines of, the purpose of marketing is to keep your business top of mind. Right? That is the purpose. Not every customer who searches for you is in need of your service right now. Right? But what you want to do is, and what we always build our marketing strategies around, is that customer who comes to your website. Maybe they're just searching. They know that they have to get a service done in the next couple of months. They go to your website plus probably 3, maybe 5 other shops that show up. After that, most of the time, they don't see anything from any of those businesses. You want to make sure that they see your shop on social media or retargeted through other ads. You're going to give them the opportunity to, maybe sign up for an email newsletter where you can re-engage them. But what we like to do is those customers who come to the website and don't convert, so they don't place a phone call or they don't send an email, we will retarget them by creating ads that are a customer review, right? So we'll have we'll send a photographer to your shop and we'll have a photo of your shop in behind with a customer review laid over top of it and your logo on it. So that person who searched for your shop, didn't request a service, but probably needs one soon, sees your brand, your company, it's kept top of mind. And then when they're ready to make that decision, it's pretty clear who they're going to trust.
I love it. This is really, really good information. And I feel like we could probably keep going on this for quite some time. So we'll definitely have you back on the show and talk more in depth about a couple of things. As I'm looking at things, we probably didn't get through everything that we wanted to talk about, but I think there was a lot of really good stuff here. And regardless of shop size, I really feel like you could take some of this stuff back with you and implement it. So if somebody wants to learn more about your company or maybe has a question about the podcast, how do they reach out to you, Nick?
Yes. So Dieselmatic is built to facilitate growth at every stage of a shop. So, if you're just starting out, we have, a kind of strategy for that where you're, within that kind of $0 to $500,000 a year range. If you're, mid-size and want to get bigger, we have a strategy for that. If you're a big shop and doing, $2+ million a year and you just can't find the right spot, we've got a plan for that too. But the best way really is to just go to dieselmatic.com and ask for a call. We've got a nice little easy form on the website. Likely our sales manager, Tracy, will reach out to you, and then we'll set up a time to do exactly what Jay and I are doing here, and just have a chat and get to know your shop a little bit more. We'll show you some more about what Jay and I talked about today, how Dieselmatic works, what all our Dieselmatic dashboard does, how it functions, how our plans work, and go from there.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. That was a wealth of information. That was really, really good. I really enjoyed the conversation, and look forward to the next time.
Thanks so much, Jay. Me too.